There we go. All right. So today we're going to talk about the benefits of writing fan fiction and also how to write good fan fiction. Now, when I say benefits of writing fan fiction, I don't mean like fame and fortune. Um, Most of the time, fan fictions cannot be published as their own works. I do say most with a big asterisk because we're going to talk about the exceptions to that rule. However, there are benefits to writing fan fiction. The first one being practice. If you want to get better at writing, you need to practice. And sometimes the easiest way to practice is in a universe that's already been set up. It's kind of like someone saying, hey, build your own set and host a play, or hey, work with this castle set and host a play. One's definitely going to be easier than the other. Starting from scratch versus having something already set up. One's really nice, the other's kind of a pain. Not to say that writing's bad, more just that it's hard. So it gives you a lot of practice in a very easy, nice environment. It also can give you a lot of practice of how to develop characters. A lot of the best fan fictions, which we're going to talk about later, go deeper into the characters. They're like, hey, so we have a very three-dimensional character in this series. What if I went one step further and made them even more three-dimensional? Or alternatively, what if I talked about their past? Or what if I talked about them in the future? Or all sorts of things that take a already good building block character that's already been developed, already fully done, you know everything about them, and then expands on it. And so it gives you the ability to practice character development, to practice world development, to practice writing well, to practice writing characters that are different from yourself, which, as we've mentioned in other lessons, is incredibly hard. You know you best. So, of course, you're going to write someone who's like you. And there's nothing wrong with putting a piece of yourself in your novel, but self inserts can be a little tricky to work with, as we've also discussed. With this type of practice, fan fiction enables you to have great building blocks. It's kind of like working with Legos, right? If you were to work with clay or work with some other sort of medium like paint, you have to start from nothing, right? A blank canvas or a lump of clay. But with Legos, you already have pieces pre-built, pre-made. You just need to put them together in the way that works best for you. And it's the same thing with fan fiction. You have basically blocks, Legos from fan fiction, and then you rebuild it into your own creation. And it can actually be really beautiful. There are some fan fictions that are so popular that even though they never got formally published, people still are reading them and talking about how phenomenally good they are. And it's actually sad. There's one lady who never published anything but fan fiction, but she literally, if she had published her own novels, would be a bestseller because of the amount of people that have read her fan fictions. And so you can be a very talented writer and write fan fiction. Unfortunately, you won't make any money off of it, which is why I said it's sad. But if your only goal is to make yourself and other people overjoyed over this fan fiction, then success, you win. It's a good thing. It helps you practice, it helps you to grow as a writer, it even helps you to develop something that people find really inspiring and really cool. I know there's a lot of times where I have several friends actually who have said that they will read or the originals of stuff like Percy Jackson or Harry Potter, and then they'll read fan fiction, and sometimes the fan fiction is actually better. It can happen. So, using it as a form of practice, there's nothing wrong with that. There is no shame in writing fan fiction. If someone's like, "Oh, you only write fan fiction?" Get out of here. That's not true. There's nothing wrong with writing fan fiction. Now, I will put an asterisk on that. Enter fan fiction into a contest. The reason I say that is because contest being your own original work, and even if it's your own original concept, the characters and the world is not your own original place. And so as a result, they will immediately reject it. No matter how good it is. It might be the best fan fiction in all of the universe, but it isn't your own original concept, even if it's your own original spin on the concept. Now, if you want to wait 200 years when it becomes in the public domain and then republish that fan fiction, you probably could make a ton of money, but also good luck living that long. There's a lot of people who do that, though. The Great Gatsby would have been considered fan fiction for a long time. There's a lot of stuff that people wrote that were considered fan fiction, and then they finally waited till it came into the public domain. I believe that was a 95 years. Every book is different, which is why I said 200 years, because I was like, that's the average, but some are less, some are more. But anyway, it came into the public domain, and all of a sudden, all of this Great Gatsby fan fiction just poured from the depths of society, where people were like, I can finally publish my fan fiction and have it be legitimate. Because fan fiction is a legitimate spin on the story. The only problem is that because it's not in the public domain yet, you can't get any money from it, which is sad because there's a lot of people who write phenomenally good fan fiction and honestly should be paid for it. It's good. Moving forward with other benefits for fan fiction. You can explore a new universe. Now, part of this goes in within practice, but it's slightly different. Exploring within someone else's universe can help you develop your own universe because you're playing with their rules, playing with their phenomenon, playing with what if this rule had a loophole and things like that. And that allows you to be able to develop your own universe better. By tinkering with their universe, you're able to say, huh, that's how it works. It's kind of similar to how some coders will look at code for certain websites and then be like, oh, that's a cool function, and then they'll use it in their own code, right? It's similar here, where you play around in the universe writing fan fiction, and then when you go to write your own universe, you're like, here's how I'm going to twist it or change it, or I'm going to use the same concept, but I'm going to use it with a different thing. There's a lot of things like that, especially with magic and things like that. Percy Jackson, for instance, the whole "oh, I'm tired after using magic" thing. He's not the first person to do that. There's so many other people who do that, but it's because it's a good cause and effect type of magic thing, and it also makes it so to be like, oh no, now they're in peril because they're unconscious, and so it makes that sense of fear heightened. It has a lot of benefits there, and so playing in someone else's universe can help you create your own. All right, similar thing. This one's practice, but slightly different. This can also help you build your own characters. If you're, for example, I'm assuming none of you are a 95-year-old super soldier who was during the Second World War. Yeah, okay. Um, so, for example, Bucky, everyone knows who I'm talking about. Oh, there's a ton of fan fiction out there about the Winter Soldier. Tons. And tons about Captain America and all those guys. But they're not things we've experienced. But by using them through fan fiction, we can kind of imagine what it's like to be them. And by imagining what it's like to be them, we can imagine what it's like to be our own unique characters and slowly start to think outside of our own very limited box that we live in. Because it's hard, we are who we are, so we've experienced what we've experienced. And it can be difficult trying to put yourself in other people's shoes. Everyone's had their own good and their own bad experiences, and makes it difficult when you're like, okay, I've had this horrible experience, but how can I possibly compare that to that horrible experience that your character has? And this will help you to be able to look deeper into characters and say, if I went through this, how would I feel? And then say, okay, now how would Bucky feel? How would Steve, Captain America, feel? How it, and then being able to take that and extrapolate from there. Okay, I have a character that's similar in the regards that they're immortal and they've been through a lot, and they've been in a lot of wars, so they may not be Bucky or Captain America. They're their own original character, but they'll have trace elements of the original, right? All right, now we're going to get into this official. If you want to publish your own fan fiction, you can. It is doable. Now there's once again a big asterisk on it because of the fact that it is hard. There has to be a lot of differences. If it is, for example, there's a fan fiction that is incredibly popular, as I mentioned before. It has literally become so well read that they did the numbers, they did the math. If it had sold as many books as it had reads, it would be a bestseller. But it's in the Harry Potter universe with the Harry Potter characters. There's no way to remove it from that. It's just too entrenched. And so even though the character she made is her own unique character, you can't remove it because it would be like taking the soul out of the book. because it belongs in that universe. It's basically about what if Ron had a twin sister and she was ostracized from the family for being Slytherin and fell in love with Draco. Sounds crazy, but it's literally super insanely popular. People loved it. They thought it was so cool. They thought it was super interesting. But because of the fact that it was, like I said, in the Harry Potter universe with the Harry Potter characters, they couldn't exactly publish it because you'd have to change the entire story in order to make it work. However, there has been fan fiction that has been published officially. There are several different scenarios. Great Gatsby, you wait until something that you really like becomes public domain, typically an older novel of some sort. Or you find something else that is already in the public domain, like, for example, Pride and Prejudice. There's a lot of Pride and Prejudice fan fiction out there. And the reason why is because it's already in the public domain. Or, like I said with Great Gatsby, you wait until something that is older becomes in the public domain. You write it, you polish it, you spiff it up, and then you wait till the public domain comes in, and then you start submitting places. Um, that's why immediately, like literally, it was the public domain rights came in, and then like a month later, Great Gatsby fan fiction hit the market. It was like 7 of them. But anyway, um, the last way to make it official, if you don't want to wait for public domain, is to make it removed. So, for example, the most famous example currently, although there are some other famous examples, is called the love hypothesis. You may or may not have heard of this. It's a Kylo Ren, Rey fan fiction. However, what she did is said, what if Kylo Ren was a college professor? And what if Rey was a college student? And she put it in the modern world. As a result, the only thing that needed to change was their names. It was its own story by itself. Yes, the characters were absolutely plagiarized from that universe, but by the time you get done making him not a Sith Lord and making him a college grumpy professor and making her a science student, it makes it completely different. They almost seem like different people. Honestly, though, when you see the front cover, you can tell it's them. But anyway, but that's what I love about it, is they're like, we're just gonna admit that it's them, but only subtly. So, but they changed their names. And so, because of the fact that it was so far removed from it, even though it was fan fiction, it was allowed to be published because they just had to change their names a little bit. So, you can actually get your stuff published. Just keep in mind, if you do want to get a fan fiction published, you got to remove it from the world. Or alternatively, you've got to remove them from the situation. Or you've got to change the world enough that it becomes your own. there there needs to be some sort of new twist to it that is more drastic than just, hey, new character, hey, new thing, hey, new concept. It needs to be almost entirely new, with a little asterisk of technically fan fiction. Now, moving forward with this, we're going to talk about how to write good fan fiction. And there's way more than that. The Love Hypothesis is just one example. There's actually a ton of Kylo Ren Rey fan fiction that has been turned into other stuff because it was far enough removed that people are able to be like poof and republish it. That was just the most famous occurrence. And not even just Kylo Ren and Rey. There's tons of other fan fiction that has been, they just renamed the characters, bibbity boppity boo, suddenly not fan fiction anymore, technically. And that can happen. Um, so don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid to try and put your own spin on it and do your own thing. And especially with public domain stuff, go for it. It may not feel public domain, like for example, Pride and Prejudice. You're probably thinking, there's no way that's public domain. It is. There's even a series that I ran into. I can't remember what it's called right now, but it's by Mary Robinette Quall. And basically, it's just Pride and Prejudice, but fantasy. What if they lived in a fantasy universe instead of Regency England? That's it. It's literally fan fiction, but it's fantastic. So you can do this. Don't let anyone snub or rub their nose at your fan fiction. They're just being snobs. All right. So moving forward, we're going to talk about background. So like I mentioned earlier with the characters, developing them more is kind of the key to a really good fan fiction because they have been well developed in the TV series, the movie, the book, fill in the blank of whatever you're spinning off. but you need to develop their background more. Say, okay, well, I know that XYZ happened in their background. What if I added another twist to it? What if they fell in love during those years and they always wanted to go back? Or what if I changed their background by saying that this happened? Or what if instead of their parents being super, super mean, they were super, super supportive? How would that change this character? Because that's kind of what fan fiction is all about, right? Is the what ifs, the maybes, the that could be interesting. And so this is how you can develop that better. Look at their background and say, okay, what can I change about this that would make them a whole new character? That would make it a whole new experience. All right. Next thing that we've been talking about, but I'm going to talk about how precisely to do, is the twist. So when I say the twist, I don't mean like we thought it was her, but psych, it's her, murderer, whatever. No, I don't mean that kind of twist. I mean, what's your own special thing about this? Like with the love hypothesis, she was like, hey, what if these characters, which are so well developed and great, didn't live in that universe? What if they lived in our perfectly normal universe? And they're still enemies, but not quite, in a different sense. Instead of being on different sides of a war, they're on different sides of a scientific thesis, arguing the poets and whatnot. And so it makes it twists into a new thing. A great example of this is there are tons of fan fictions out there where it's character X and character Y get married. Yay. Um, but what if it's character X and character Y get married because they live in the modern day? What if it's character X goes into the past and falls in love with character Y? What if it's character Y goes forward into the future and accidentally causes character X to fall in love with someone else? There's a lot of different things you can do to change things. Um, or like I said, you can change what about them changes based on who their parents are. Say they go back in time and make it so that their original parents never meet. So it turns out their parents are actually really good people now. And now they're a totally different character because they have wholesome, nice parents instead of abusive parents or whatever happened with the character. Um, or you could say, what if this character was mortal? If you have, like, for example, Legolas, an elven prince, right? He lives, he's immortal. He's very, very different because he's immortal. If he was mortal in the regular world, I totally bet you he'd be a very different person. And you could totally do that if you wanted to. It opens up a door of limitless possibilities when you think about what makes it more unique for you. What is the what if that you're going to focus on in your fan fiction? Is what about it makes it your own unique thing? All right. Okay. Next thing we're going to talk about is good plot versus wish fulfillment. A lot of fan fictions are wish fulfillment. It's like, oh, for example, I've seen a lot of these. We really want Bucky and Captain America to be gay and get together. There's a lot of people who want that for some reason, and I'm like, okay, that's what you want. Cool. But most of them are bad because it's just wish fulfillment. It's just them being like, yay, they together now. And that's great and all. But if you want it to be an actual good story, you've got to have a good plot. You can't just say, and now they're fluffy forever and ever and ever. But you also can't just say, throw in drama for no reason. You've got to have a developed plot. You've got to have a climax. You've got to have a moment where maybe they break up and decide they'd be better off not together, or something else makes it so that they feel they can't be together. That's the main crux of most romances, right? But most people just want the wish fulfillment. And sure, if you want to just write a normal fan fiction, great, go for the wish fulfillment. Have fun, have a blast. But if you're trying to write a good, high quality fan fiction, you got to have a good plot. You've got to put it together in such a way that it feels like there's a risk and a danger, a new story to be told. Um, you've got to unfold your new narrative because there isn't going to be a new narrative with that, right? It's going to change how people feel about things. It's going to change how the original story itself is told because it's so different from the original. Beyond that, if you decide to go with this kind of thing. If you're a pantser, aka you just write and don't bother with plot, you just go freedom and just write, great. But keep in mind that if you're going to have a good plot, you're going to need to redevelop it later. You're going to need to go back, look at it, map it out, say, okay, these scenes aren't necessary, these scenes are. You've got to repolish it. Whereas with the wish fulfillment, you can just do whatever you want. And neither is bad. They're just different. Wish fulfillment is probably just going to get you on your average Wattpad AO3 kind of platform. Nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of people, like I said, that have been on Wattpad and are practically bestseller rates of read on Wattpad and things like that just by doing wish fulfillment. And that's fine. That's great. If that's what you want, go for it. But if you want a chance at it actually becoming its own story and getting potentially even published, you got to have that good plot. You've got to have more than just the wish fulfillment. You've got to add good, solid storytelling to it. All right. The last ingredient and the most important ingredient. Do what you're passionate about. Don't write a fan fiction because you think it would make a good story. Write it because you want to write it. And this goes the same for regular writing too. It's an important lesson that we all need to learn. There's a lot of people that say write for trends. The only people who write for trends always end up sad because it's not actually a good story. You can feel that the author's heart isn't in it. And the best stories have a piece of the author's soul in them. I personally believe that, and a lot of other people do. You can feel when an author does not care about their story. So you've got to make sure there's passion behind it. And you've got to make sure that you really feel passionate about it. If you're writing a story and you're just going, I'm just writing this because my mom said it was a good idea, that's not going to be a good story. But if you're writing it because you're like, yeah, I was super passionate about this idea, and then my mom said it'd be great too, then go for it. Make sure that you are passionate about it. And that's what I love about fan fiction writers is they're just like, I am super passionate about this universe, so I'm going to write a freaking story about it. And they just go for it. And I think that you should take that same level of fan fiction passion into your own original stories. Make sure that you have that same level of passion where you love your characters just as much as the ones you read from fill in the blank series or novel. Make sure that your passion is just as much for that world. You want to build a world and a set of characters that you are absolutely in love with. And if you've never done that before, that's okay. Start with fan fiction. It's a good place to start building that passion, learning what makes you passionate about a character, learning what makes you feel extra passionate about a world. Learn what makes that passion spark in you so you can continue to do it with other things. For example, with the love hypothesis, after she wrote the love hypothesis, being a Kylo Ren Rey fan fiction in the modern universe, very much fan fiction, she learned how to take her own passion and make it original. And now she writes tons of other stuff that has nothing to do with fan fiction. It's her own original work. And even if it was fan fiction, no one would technically know because she just changed the names. But point being, that it's original stuff. And the reason why I think she was able to do that is because she started with what she was good at. She was like, I love Star Wars, and I think Kylo Ren and Rey deserve a happily ever after in another universe. And so she did. And now she's able to give her own characters, her own original characters, that same chemistry, that same happily ever after, that same passion that she had in that first novel. So, to finish up the lesson, there's nothing wrong with being passionate about something and writing about it. The only time that it becomes a problem is submitting it into a contest, is because of the fact that they want their own original stuff. Now, that doesn't mean you can't submit it though. Like with the Kylo Ren Rey fanfiction, if you just change the names and it's unique enough that if you change the names, someone can't tell, then by all means do. Trust me, if they can't tell, you'll be fine. The issue comes in when it's obvious, like I know this happened during the scary story contest where I was kind of sad because I was like, this is actually kind of a cool story. And then at the end, it was like, I was attacked by the Enderman. And I was like, oh, it's just Minecraft fan fiction. And I'm like, this, I was like, this is a great story. It's not that they were a bad writer. It's just the fact that I was like, I can't even give it to them because it's supposed to be your own original work. And Enderman is not their own original creature. It's Minecraft's. If they had literally called it anything else, I would not have guessed that it was the Enderman, and I probably would have given it a higher score. But I couldn't even place it because of the fact that I was like, it says original on the sheet, and Enderman is not your own original creation. So, my point being, do what makes you happy. But don't forget that if you are going to try to actually publish it somewhere, you gotta spin it. You gotta give it your own twist. You can't just say lemon and lime soda and claim it's your own invention. You gotta add a little something new to it. And it doesn't even have to be a lot new. You, a great example to use with this metaphor, lemon and lime soda. We all know what that is, right? It's Sprite. And yes, there's off brands of Sprite, but there's off brands. And because of that, you realize that you can do the same thing. There are off brands of all sorts of things, and you can do that too. As long as you change the name, people don't really care. They're like, hey, I'm okay with this. There's so many people I know who have been like, I love the love hypothesis. And I'm like, it's a Kylo Ren Ray fan fiction, right? And they're like, I see it now, but I just enjoyed it without knowing that. And that's part of the enjoyment of it, is that it doesn't matter where it came from as long as you write from the heart. Do you guys have any other questions about writing fan fiction? Not particularly. Okay, cool. Well, another reminder, we now have 25 days before, speaking of contest entries, the next contest is due. It's a 3,000 word limit, but it does not obviously have to be 3,000 words long. That's just the limit. If you're having any problem with going over the word count, I have several videos talking about how to shrink things down, since I know it is really hard. I even did one last time during the scary story contest, since that was even shorter. um, so if you're struggling with figuring out how to shrink things down, I'd recommend going and rewatching those. If there's anything I can do to help you, please let me know. I'm going to turn off the video, and feel free to ask me any questions that you want about writing, or even suggest other lesson topics. Always happy to have more.